Most people think that they're tracking their health when they actually are not. They're tracking a number on a scale, and that number might be one of the most misleading metrics in all of healthcare. You can lose weight and get less healthy, surprising but true. You can gain weight, you can become significantly healthier, right? There's two extremes. You can spend thousands on supplements, hormones, trainers, meal plans, peptides, GLP-1 medications, and still have no idea what's actually happening inside your body. Are you losing body fat? Are you losing lean mass? Are you losing bone health? All these different metrics that are very important. What is actually happening? And that's what we're going to cover on today's conversation, and why today's conversation really does matter, because the future isn't about guessing. The future is about real measurement, real data. And today we're talking about metabolic intelligence, metabolic data from DEXA for your body composition, your body fat, your lean mass, your visceral fat, your RMR, which is your resting metabolic rate. We're going to talk about that, and your VO2 max. All of these things are really important. They all factor into what? Your health, and why the practices that are winning out there in longevity, in performance medicine, in health optimization are building entire programs around data instead of just opinions. Joining me today is Eric Martinez. Eric has a great clinical history working with all of these technologies, with DEXA, with RMR, with VO2 max. Eric, glad to have you here. Do a quick intro of yourself. What do you do and where are you at?
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me. So my background is mostly as a registered clinical exercise physiologist. I'm one out of 1,000 here in the States in the United States. In Florida, only 23 of us actually exist, and currently I'm one of the most active ones. But it took a long time to get there, and the requirements to get there was doing 10,000 hours in every specific population, each one 10,000 hours. So cardiac, pulmonary, oncology, metabolic. And from there, really honing down into the chronic disease side. But then I got into the performance side because of a few mentors I had that worked with Red Bull, and going to the mental state of stuff like EGGs and other sophisticated technologies that most people didn't know existed. And it really trickled down to a point where I ended up opening a facility with a few partners that did more of an integrated approach on, hey, let's look at not just one part of your body, which is exercise. Let's look at diet. Let's look at mental state. Let's look at a perspective of functional medicine. Let's look at rehab medicine. So PT, chiro. Let's incorporate the high data points. So DEXA, DARI, which was on motion, biomechanics and force production, things like that. VO2 max, resting metabolic rate, blood work, as I mentioned a little bit earlier with the functional medicine, and then had a full-blown strength conditioning facility to incorporate everything. But really honing down the idea that it's not just one thing we need to look at, it's the rest of the other systems that your body is composed of that we have to look at to make a difference in that specific person. And I think the funniest thing is that this all started with me being a fat kid who wanted to play baseball, but I had asthma and I had pre-diabetes, and I was a chunky kid and I was made fun of. And all of that led to, hey, I need to be better for myself. And eventually I got an interest into all of this that I just mentioned. And I've been fortunate enough to now be known as the person that works with chronic diseases and taking that chronically ill person to a higher level of performance where they could do things like rock climb and they live their life the way they want to live, do marathons, not being worried of whatever they have that could be a chronic indication. So that's who I am in a nutshell. There's more to the story, but we could talk to that. We could talk about that another day.
We'll get it. We'll get into all of it.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get into all of it.
Yeah.
So some of the biggest problems in healthcare. I want to introduce myself first. Jeff Rubinoff here with Optimized for Success. Our podcast gets into and gets to talk to providers, clinicians, and business owners that have themselves gone on a journey. They've optimized themselves. They help optimize others, and building out successful practices and locations, helping individuals optimize. So it's about business success optimization and personal health success optimization, and helping others go down that same journey. So excited for the conversation today. And I really want to start with something a little bit controversial. Now, I think most people are trying incredibly hard, right? They're not necessarily lazy. They're not necessarily unmotivated. They're simply operating with bad information. I'm talking about they start a diet, they start a program, they get demotivated potentially from the program, something's off, and maybe it's just this bad information. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree?
Yes, 1,000,000%. So I think before we even got on, I mentioned two things, that any fool can make another fool sweat, and everything works and nothing works at the same time. So yeah, I agree with you 100%.
That's great. And really, then when we look at it, I like what you just said. Why do smart people fail at these programs, right? Why do they get frustrated? Why do they keep going into the same diet cycles and exercise or lack thereof exercise? What is it? And then why are patients, they're doing everything right and they're not getting results, or at least they think they're not getting results? I think these are really good points that we want to get into. And in order to establish that, I think we also want to step back, and we're going to look at some of the key data points that can really help right all these wrongs, right? And let's start out with a scenario. Two people, they weigh exactly 200 pounds. Why can one be healthy and the other not healthy? And how do we figure that out? How do we use some of the modalities that we just mentioned, using DEXA, using RMR, using VO2? How are we identifying these two individuals?
So honestly, it's body composition. That's the very first thing we want to look at. Yeah, someone could weigh 200 pounds, someone else could weigh 200 pounds, but what's that 200 pounds made of? Right? It comes back to that old school of using BMI, which at this point, body mass index, if most of you guys aren't familiar with BMI, it's just a height to weight ratio. And it was used as like a cookie cutter formula to put people in like these risk stratification issues.
Risk boxes.
Like, hey, the higher the BMI is, the more problematic you are. Too low of BMI, the problematic you are.
Right.
But as technology got better and we got better numbers and research has improved, we started noticing that it's not about the overall weight that's the problem. It's your body fat composition and your body composition that's the problem.
Right.
What's mostly associated with someone being unhealthy is too little muscle mass and too much fat mass, whether it's organ fat or skin fat. That's actually the reality of it. So yeah, I could be 200 pounds, but I could be at 180 pounds of lean tissue with 20 pounds of fat, versus someone who's 100 pounds, well, not too exaggerated, 150 pounds of lean muscle and lean tissue and 50 pounds of fat. Who's going to be more efficient? The guy that's leaner, right? Less body fat.
Right.
Yeah.
So these are really important metrics, and really a lot of the health programs that have been out there and are continue to be out there, especially if we're in like traditional medicine, over let's call it cash bait. Let's really focus outside of biohacking. Let's get out of wellness, but in the optimization, health optimization, longevity space, outside of traditional sick care. And traditional sick care, they don't even know about this kind of data, right? They just look at BMI still today, and they don't understand the ratio of diet and exercise on how that impacts those things. But even without that, then we step into health optimization, longevity, and yet there's still practices that aren't incorporating this data into the metric before they even set their patients or clients onto a program.
Yeah, and it, like, not to be too much of a, like, I'll get some hate for it too, in the sense that it also depends on who the practice is catering to, right? So if the practice is mostly catered to like obese category 2 or 3, then maybe BMI could help in the beginning. But what happens when they get down to like a category 1 or outside the BMI of being obese anymore? You can't put them in those bubbles anymore. That's now when you got to get into deeper analysis. And that's kind of things that we'll touch on later on in this discussion, but that's where things fail, when it gets outside of their box of what they've been used to seeing, right? You're only as good as your box is until you have to get outside of the box.
Want to live outside the box.
Now it's again, it's like you only see it from one perspective, and then when things don't change, then it's time for you to see someone else's perspective.
That's right.
And what could be the problem? Yeah.
So, are you telling me the scales line?
Yeah. Your scales can like tip you off in the wrong direction as bad as possible, right? And it'll drive anybody nuts. There's also like the idea of analysis by paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Too much information, and then you see like something skew completely off. That's when you lose your shit.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that.
So, okay. So weight's a terrible standalone metric. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, okay. It's terrible. Like you could go outside, especially here in Florida. You could sweat off like 2 pounds because you're dehydrated at this point.
That's right.
Yeah, you lost 2 pounds of weight. Doesn't mean you lost anything sufficient. Right?
That's what you have to do before you're weighing. So then BMI is failing as well. You said it's a weight to height ratio, and
it's a weight to height ratio. As we researched more, we started realizing that risk factors are more associated with how much fat you have, especially visceral fat. How much visceral fat do you have? Not your actual total weight.
Right. So from that, why is body composition the missing link in many of these programs? And there's other missing links we'll touch on, but why is the body composition, lean mass, body fat, visceral fat, why is this a missing link?
So it's usually because, and there's like a few things I could point out. One is the professional or the the individual's access to technology. Okay. That's one of the problems. Like in the specific areas, most people don't have access to a DEXA scan, but they do have access to like a bioelectrical impedance test. Whether it's a good one or not, I don't know. It depends what they have access to, right? Okay. Some people have access to garbage, which is true. Like they'll have one of those terrible quality bioelectrical impedance plates at home, and they think that's the best number to go off of. Doesn't teach them how to actually get on that scale. So that's one reason. So access to technology is a big one. And then 2 is understanding the technology, right? Or at least how to incorporate the technology into the practice. Just because someone has a DEXA, for example, a gold standard, doesn't know that they know how to read the DEXA. Right. And I think that's another sticking point. So now the education comes onto the practitioner. If they're well enough, if their box that they've educated themselves understands that well enough.
Right.
And if they don't,
they can reach out. Yeah. This is the beauty of it. Reach out to the internet, figure it out.
You have to get outside of your box that you're in that box stuck into. But you have to admit that, hey, I don't know everything. And I really think those are the two main points and why it's really tough for people to get it. Like growing up, I was in the whole process after all these years seeing technology change. And I saw how it changed. Like it got easier for people. So back in my day, it was not so easy. We had the hydrostatic weighing to be the gold standard, and that was a nightmare. Like I would dump people, had to hold their breath, no oxygen, no nothing in their lungs.
Yep.
And then I had to get them to not move. And then make sure I get the line.
Right.
Yeah, get the line, and then I had to stick it in this super complicated freaking formula that in my head, as smart as I am, I'm like, damn, I don't want to do this. Why? So
right.
Those are some other things to look at too. Like, does the person that you're working with or the practice want to dedicate so much time to get outside of that box?
Right. And I think if they want to generate the revenue, they want to get the patient outcomes, they've got to draw outside the lines, right? They've got to figure out outside their comfort zone. Those doctors that have left traditional sick care and are into cash-based medicine, into well care, health optimization, longevity medicine, biohacking, age management, whatever label they want to put on it, when they make that transition, it's to help people generate better outcomes. Now, to do that, they have to still get outside of the procedural mindset. Someone comes with an ailment, you fix it with a drug or a surgery, you send them on their way. This is a journey, right? Health optimization is a journey. When you bring your car into the shop, there's a lot of parameters that people are looking at, if the car isn't functioning properly. If you have a race car, there's even more critical information where they connect it up to the computer and they can look at every functionality of the timing of the engine. And every car has gone through a similar process at the factory. The engine timing, the gear shift ratios, the pistons firing. I mean, every aspect of the car has been tuned a specific way and will require tuning and maintenance in the future. But how do you know what you need if you've never started with the data? And this is exactly what's happening in the health optimization longevity space. Is they're trying to tune a body that's completely out of tune because of the traditional sick care model. They're moving into health optimization, yet their starting point, their data is broken. I mean, they get some of the data with blood work, but this missing link that we're talking about, body composition, resting metabolic rate, which we'll talk more about, VO2 max, not present in a lot of scenarios, but it's becoming more prevalent and sought after by smart patients. But touch on that, this distinction, like how vital is this information?
Well, I'll put it like this. It's like going back to the car analogy. Imagine you're looking at all the points of the engine, right? You're about to buy this car and you forget to check the brakes.
Yeah. Who needs those brakes anyways?
What happens if your brakes are faulty? Right? So you can still drive the car, but the moment that you needed to brake, it's going to have a problem.
Right. Yeah.
So that's how you could look at all these testing analogies and everything else. I'm looking at a lot of the component that I'm used to, but I forget to look at the brakes. Now, if I really want to make a difference and I want to improve the quality of the vehicle, I'll go look at the brakes. Right. And I could charge more for that. And the sales will be different. Yeah, you could charge a lot more because you're being more thorough. Just than anything else. The more thorough you are, not only will it make it easier for your programming to be, but you can start proving numbers. You can start proving data from a quantitative approach as opposed to a subjective approach. He said, she said doesn't really count with people that are trying to buy and invest into you.
So you're saying science and data information, which science develops and has changed considerably along this journey, as you had mentioned. The baseline used to be BMI, which was a height-weight ratio, but now we're talking about real data, stuff that's actually happening inside the body. And once you know this, you can't unknow it, right? It's a known variable. So now how do you go down a path and not have this data. It just seems like establishing a baseline is so important to where we're at today, right now, this moment. Moving forward, I gotta.
Yeah, you can't anymore. You're dealing with people that are smarter. You're looking at people that have more access to data. You have more people that have access to, unfortunately, social media, right? And you have to now elaborate your reasoning.
Right.
And you have to explain yourself that, hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing, because this came out as this number. Not only is it going to help you stand out, but it's going to match with what the market is doing now, that most people are in this space. Like, okay, they're not going to take my word for it anymore. It's not like that. Even myself, I've already had a few instances that people, while I'm doing a specialty physiology lecture or whatever, they will chat GPT my facts to see if I'm right. And I'm like, are you seriously doing this in front of me? Like, at least step out of the room.
Right, while we're talking.
not while you're face to face with me.
Right.
But there's something that comes good out of that. And when the machine says, yeah, he's right, he's not giving you fluff, then my credibility goes up higher.
Right. Till they find out you're the one who programmed ChatGPT.
I went in there and I said, I went to Wikipedia and I said, Eric likes blueberries and is known to eat blueberries, right?
That's right. Hey, on a side note, before we get into what's actually driving this longevity craze right now, right? And so many good things are happening, and we'll dig into it and we'll talk more in depth. But here's just to throw out kind of a topic to move us into there. What scares you most about GLP-1s that are being used today?
People are just injecting it like there's no repercussions. So
it's good. And how do you know without data?
Well, it's not only that. Like, people, unfortunately, there's some people that are doing it not the right way, not getting it through the right providers. They're just like getting it from whimsical, or the provider is not familiar with the drug, and then they're just going off of what they've instantly learned because they have access to it. But they forget that everybody is different.
Scary too.
Some people have a different pathology. Some people have a disease, a chronic disease. Some people have different sizes and weight structure. People have different body compositions. People have different training adaptability or environmental adaptability. All that are factors into how GLP-1s work on them. And then on top of that, they're not measuring how is it working with this person. And then
that's the big one. They're not
that's
doing
a big one. No,
there's no data. No, they're not taking. A lot of sites are not doing body composition.
They're just shooting them up. They're shooting them up and saying, hey, look at the weight loss that you're going through. Yay, weight loss. You feel better. Weight. You have more energy.
Back to scale weight.
Back to scale weight. And it's so upsetting. Like, imagine me. I'm the one that does DEXA on a daily basis. And when I get someone that's on a GLP-1 and they lost significant amount of muscle mass and fat, but a lot of muscle mass.
They lost weight.
And then you look at them, you're reading the report to them, they go, oh, I lost a lot of muscle. I'm like, well, yeah, it's how you've been doing your program.
And how do you get it back? It's hard to get it back.
It's not easy because now you don't feel like you have,
right.
Well, they don't feel like they have the energy to get it back because they're on GLPs. Like, what energy do you have to go work out? And then what is a proper structured workout for that person?
For what they're taking.
Right? Yeah, or what is the other cocktail that I need to be on now to compensate for it?
That's right. Exactly. All right. So that brings us into these longevity places, right? Now, everyone talks about living longer, right? Almost nobody talks about maintaining function. I won't say almost nobody. A lot of people are talking about maintaining function, but everyone wants to live longer. Do you want to function better or just as well? Sarcopenia. muscle loss. Why should a 40-year-old or a 60-year-old, really care about lean mass loss, whether it's from the GLP-1s we just talked about, or in general? Why is muscle becoming one of the strongest predictors of aging well? We're not talking about you have to be Arnold, Schwarzenegger or Stallone, ripped at 80. It would help, but you don't have, you have to be in good shape. You have to have lean mass, right? Proportionate as a percentage, right? You don't want to see big loss of lean mass. And how do you know? How do you tell? Why is all that important right now?
Well, muscle mass is associated with a lot of different things, right? And there's a relationship with a lot of different factors.
Mm-hmm.
How well can you move is associated with how much force can you produce. You need to have muscle to produce force. You need to have muscle to have balance, because that's part of coordination. That's part of proprioception. That's part of being efficient. Then you need to have muscle mass. It makes you more efficient metabolically when using glucose, fats, all these energy systems. The more muscle you have, the more energy efficiency you have, right? But think of it like this too, like you need to have muscle when you're older to be able to walk.
Yes.
If you don't have enough muscle, you're going to have a tougher time walking.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that you'll either be very slow, or again, your balance will be very bad and you have terrible coordination. That's one thing to think about. In the end of the day, muscle mass has a lot of benefits when you get older. And unfortunately, we lose muscle mass as we get older.
Right.
Men lose 10% after, I believe after 35, you start losing percentages of muscle mass. For every 10 years that you're not active, you're losing 10%. That's a lot.
10%. That's a lot.
That is a lot, right? And that's talking about someone that's not active.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're active, they can maintain that. Which then comes to the other thing, is that a lot of people say, hey, I'm not training for anything, but I want to maintain. That's
Right.
a problem of itself, because you maintain. It just means that you're going to stay where you're at, but it doesn't mean you're going to build any more new muscle, because you're not challenging the system to build that muscle, right? You need to challenge it to improve. So what happens if you don't challenge it? You keep losing with time.
Right.
Right. And it's why it's important from any age standpoint to start incorporating these type of lifestyles, because it makes it easier for you to maintain it when you get older. People that are active when they're young, they usually stay active when they get older.
Right.
Right. But
Some people didn't grow up that way, or they lost focus.
That's why it's important to have muscle mass. It's associated with glucose sensitivity. It's associated with other hormone balances like testosterone, cortisol, oxytocin. There's a bunch of things that's related to having better muscle mass, right?
Yeah.
And those are some of the key components.
That's right. Really important. Mm-hmm. Now, as we look at this, right, we want to really start tracking longevity. We're going to start our program. And if you're just to throw out three, other than blood work, I've already brought it up, it's no secret. If you only track 3 metrics for longevity outside of blood work, what would those 3 things be?
Body composition. That's one. VO2 max, or VO2 in general. That's 2. And we could say strength. A lot of people like associating grip strength. I like looking more at functional strength. So meaning, how well can you carry half of your body weight just walking around with it? So like farmers carry. Yes. Yeah. So the reason why, because grip strength, you could train grip strength. You could train it just sitting down. You can improve it, but you could also develop grip strength by just doing certain exercises in general. So there's a relationship with that. That's why people like it, but I think they use it the wrong way. in the sense that, okay, I just had this person improve grip strength while they're seated, but it doesn't mean that they could carry their groceries from the car and up 2 flights of stairs.
Functional strength is very important. Yeah.
Right. So farmer's carry and dead hangs is another popular one that has been better associated with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that at least some type of strength metric would say is the other component, whether it's getting up from a chair or walking distance. But those would be the main markers, some form of a strength test, the cardiopulmonary test, which would be VO2 max, and then body composition in general.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like that. And with the VO2, you can even pair in the RMR. But let's talk about VO2, because a lot of people listening might not know what VO2 is or VO2 max. And if they don't know, or even if they do, they might not realize how powerful the VO2 max is as a predictor. Why do longevity experts, or why are longevity experts beginning to obsess over VO2 max right now?
Honestly, it was kind of like a trend for most of these guys, but
Okay.
I had to say it. So VO2 max is not
Okay.
something new. It's been out since like 1950s, forever, right? It's just gotten better over time.
Best kept secret.
It's best kept secret, and it's mostly because it's been part of the exercise physiology department. Mostly, they're the ones that would conduct VO2 max testing alongside with exercise tolerance testing. They're the ones that really took over what we're looking at from a physiology standpoint.
Okay.
And then medical professionals started kind of elaborating more into it. And now it became a huge, big trend when people started realizing that there's associations with overall health. It's always been considered the hallmark of cardiopulmonary health. It's a gold standard in testing that.
Okay.
In general, it is looking at how much oxygen, volume of oxygen consumed to produce energy. That's mostly what this test is about. And what entails is how well can your body take air from outside, 21%, and get it all the way down to the mitochondria level that uses 2% of the 21% that's out there. And then how well can your body buffer the byproduct of it?
Mm-hmm.
Everything that affects that is from the moment you breathe in, down to your lungs, down to your villi, down into your heart, down into your arteries, down into your capillary beds, and then into the mitochondria. All of that affects how well can you use the energy, right? So as a health practitioner, no matter what type of practice, you can manipulate that. You can manipulate it by increasing mitochondrial density, by doing a specific peptide or hormone protocol. You could increase the size of the mitochondria. You could increase capillary beds. You can decrease the viscosity of your blood plasma by exercising or drinking more water or more fluids, changing your diet, micronutrients, macronutrients. You could make yourself more efficient by producing more force per step, so more muscle mass, more force. So all these little things will change your VO2 max. And that's why it's such a lovely thing to use during a practice. What most people don't realize is that everything requires energy. And the more energy you can produce, the easier things are to do. So I'll kind of give you an example. Something called metabolic equivalence is the measurement of energy required to do a task. So walking takes about 3 mets, right? Give or take around there. Going for a jog takes about 6 mets. Going for a sprint takes anywhere between 9 and 10 mets. Rough estimates, right? So if someone could produce, let's say 35 VO2 on a VO2 max test, that's equivalent to 10 mets, maximally. That means that this person can run fast at max capacity. That means that 6 mets, they're able to jog, and it's not a problem because we're talking about 4 mets of a difference. Now we do the opposite and we get someone that's only at 25 VO2, which is equivalent to maximum around 6 mets. That means that jogging is their maximum capacity. Walking is half of that. That's a hard time for that person to walk, because that's half of their maximum capacity.
Right.
And that's what people don't realize, that this is why we're really doing VO2. One is how you get up there to your VO2 max, but what are you capable to do outside in your day-to-day?
Right. That's important.
It's important. So that's why like 25 VO2 max is considered not a great number. It means that
explain these numbers a little bit. So 25 is not a good number.
Yeah. So it's
where do our numbers fall? Like, what is a good normal range? And is that person specific? Is there one range for?
Yeah.
Explain
So
that a little bit.
Yeah. So it's relative to weight. So what we're really looking at is called VO2 relative VO2 max. So it's related to your weight, how much oxygen you're consuming per minute based on your kilograms per weight. That's what we're really looking at. That's the number that most people see. So it's oxygen by weight by minute that we're looking at. The average person that's sedentary is typically about 35 VO2 max. This is someone that doesn't exercise. They're usually sedentary. Like, it means that they're able to walk. And then if you push them, they could jog a little fast. But that's pretty much it. And we know these people that don't exercise. You put them to jog a while, they're like, I'm done. But that's the average, right? They have broken down into age categories when it comes to standards. So,
but we want to live outside of the standards.
We want to live outside of the standards. So what I usually tell people, and just to keep it away from age as being a predictor, because I've seen plenty of people that are in different brackets of age groups, and some of them are really bad for their age group, and then some of them are really good for their age group. But to keep it plain and simple, 35 is typically the average for women, men. Anything above 40, when you get closer to 45, is considered superior. It means that you're above average.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, when you get into the 50s, that's where I want to see more of the athletic population, more of the weight trainers, more of the advocate runners, more of the weekend warriors. That's what I want to see in the 50s.
50s, okay.
Right. When you get into the 60s, now we're talking about someone that's more specifically trained to handle those high levels of oxygen consumptions. So we're talking about like more marathon runners. They're lighter, but they could run faster for a longer time. We're talking about people that could run for back and forth for a long time. We're talking about cyclists. They're usually in the higher 60s, right? But they're longer durations at higher force production than most people. Me personally, after doing so many VO2 testings over more than 2 decades, the highest I've ever seen was 82.
Wow.
And that was a ultra marathoner runner that I put this guy to run 11 miles per hour on an incline of 7, and he would not stop. So it gives you an idea of how much this person was at to get to that point.
Right. You know, and that's impressive.
Yeah. I've had the opposite. Where I've had people, I had to do a 6-minute walk test where they would get up to 2.5 miles per hour and they'll be short of breath.
Right.
That VO2 was about 20. Okay. Yeah. But it always comes down to how it equates with energy production. So like
that's important.
When we go to sleep, we're using 1 met. That's equivalent to 3.5 VO2.
Yeah.
And that's what the real important number is. Like, what is this person capable of doing when they're in front of me?
Yeah.
How can I transition this into a program?
Right. So VO2 max, important. We got to understand the baseline, right? We have to understand oxygen consumption. That's going to be a strong predictor of where you're at. you can improve VO2 max. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I mentioned
Okay.
it a little bit earlier, but there's a lot of ways to do that.
Yep. So that's impressive. That's imperative. Resting metabolic rate, another very good understanding of your metabolic state at the beginning of a program, and then follow up tracking, looking for progress, as you just mentioned. VO2 max, you can adjust and you can track progress and improvement. RMR, your resting metabolic rate, you can track adjustment improvement. We talked earlier about DEXA, body composition, another metric. 3 key metrics. You talked about strength testing, right? There's some really important parameters that we need to understand from an objective data set that allows the program to develop and continue. Let's kind of switch gears a little bit, because that's what we do here. The business side. This is where Optimize for Success separates itself, right? We want to stop it. The science now, we've covered a lot of good information. And so let's shift gears. Let's talk about we just focused on changing patient outcomes. There's some really important information to change patient outcomes. What about changing practice outcomes? How do we assure the success of a longevity practice, one that doesn't have data compared to one that does? So why are some practices exploding on the scene while others are struggling? Why are some cash-based optimization practices growing while others aren't? Right? Memberships maybe outperforming. Patients willing to pay for data. Are they really? You know, some practices say they can't find cash pay patients. Others are charging way beyond what they thought they could because there's a crave for good quality information and process. Let's talk about that a little bit and get into this. So I brought up a whole bunch of key points there. What do most successful optimization practices understand, or what are they doing differently than some of these others that just aren't getting it? Are they missing something? What's going on?
Well, that's a loaded question, because there's a lot of things that could entail the success.
A lot of parameters there could be.
Yep. Yeah, there's so many things that could incorporate into the success of a business. I come from an operating standpoint, so meaning like what are the numbers behind everything that's been tracked, not just from like a testing qualification, but also from who am I marketing to? So who is my niche? Who am I reaching out to? How am I acquiring them? How are they being nurtured? How are they getting into my door? How are they being presented the packages and the programs I'm providing them?
Yep.
How am I showing them from a quantitative standpoint, not a subjective standpoint, that my program works the way that it works? And then what is the end process behind that when they're done? And some of the things that I just mentioned is actually looking at your statistical numbers in all of this. Because with that, you can now figure out where's the pain point of the practice, where's the bottleneck that I need to fix, and then how can I do it in a way that all of my staff, including myself, could replicate the same process, even when I get new members coming in as part of my staff, because it's going to happen.
Standard protocol.
Just creating a scaling protocol that's simple to use, it's not complicated. And the same thing for your clientele. When you provide a program to them, it should be simple. Like, a lot of people come to you because you know what you're doing and they like you as a person, and you're actually resonating with their need, not just doing things out of their whim. Right. You're providing a solution. In the end of the day, it's about providing them a solution, and how well can you cater for where they feel right now. And I think those are the bigger key points when a business succeeds and not succeeds, is that they don't really plan out the whole journey from acquiring to retention. They don't
They're
they
missing.
don't, yeah, they don't specifically market to one group. It's kind of like the reverse funnel that you're aiming for one, and then you're broadcasting out.
Right.
And of course, there's a different approach too. There's the reverse funnel, but in this case, they're not catering to that one specific program that succeeded for that one specific uh, group of individuals, and then expanding out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's too many
And
people that are trying to grab everybody, and they're trying to please everybody, and they're trying to chase too many rabbits.
some
And
people
then it makes,
want to be high volume. They want to be, and this I think they get stuck in this, in the procedural based medical system, right? Which is
but
all about high volume, high traffic, or traditional retail, high volume, high traffic. But if
right,
you go exclusive, if you walk into, the high end mall where they have the highest end stores, like Bal Harbor, right? If you go to Bal Harbor and you walk around some of those stores, nobody's in it. They have no merchandise, right? They basically have a few items out on the racks. It's like a show site. Do people
yeah,
actually shop there? And they're 1, 2, 3 people might come in, and that's it. I mean, they're looking for the higher end clientele that are looking for that product specific. Then you go into, the other mall and just bombarded with people, or they have everything and all sorts of price ranges, and outlet malls, even more people. So you decide where you want to be. Health optimization doesn't have to be super expensive and out of reach of everybody, but you also want to be, from what you're telling me and what I'm hearing, you want to be a little more exclusive on who you work with, right? It's a
yeah,
two-way street relationship also. You want someone that's passionate about their health. They're willing to pay out of pocket for their health, like people are willing to pay for their hair to get done and women to get their nails done. They'll spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on that. People spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month at the bar. Then it comes time to optimize, right? Priorities. So you want those that are prioritizing health, and they become a good partner within the system. Is that accurate? Would you say?
yeah. So, want to kind of like again, I just had. It's funny that we're talking about this because I had this
Yeah.
conversation with a group where I'm like, well, you have to be different. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody's trying to aim for the
Definitely
same
stand up.
market,
Right.
and you need to stand out somehow. So if you start pushing your
Good
market,
point.
like narrowing it down, but
Mm-hmm.
still elaborating on the problems they have, you'll resonate with even people outside of that niche.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I could talk about, for example, entrepreneurs with cardiac uh, who had a mild cardiac infarction within the year, right? I say, hey, I'm going to work with these guys. That's what I want to work with. But when I do my marketing, be like, hey, if you're one of these guys that had a MI within a year, but you want to go outside, you want to be active, you want to have fun with your kids, and you're having this symptom of shortness of breath, I could help you work on reducing the shortness of breath. It's just a plain example, right? This would be my marketing, and I'll elaborate on shortness of breath and how we could work on shortness of breath. And that could be part of the social media. What does that do? One, I'm aiming for the niche that I just mentioned, but who else might have shortness of breath as a problem? People with COPD, people with asthma, people who have diabetes, people that don't have great activity levels, people who are not active. They all have, some of them will have shortness of breath problems. But because I elaborated and I touched that and I gave them free information about it, they will, if they like me, they will come and resonate with me the most. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this guy actually knows that I have a problem with SOP. So it's just one example, but you could go a lot of different ways with it.
I
But
want
that's
to step out
yeah,
into the
yeah,
cash-based arena, right? And you'll still see patients like that within the cash, and there's other things they can do. They want to recapture, they want to seek alternate understandings and alternate care options outside of the
of
traditional
course.
insurance based program. And to your point, it all starts with the data, right? You can get, okay, someone has shortness of breath. How did they check it before? Are they looking at parameters? Are they looking at VO2 max? Did that even factor into it? Did their traditional care model say, hey, here's how we're going to improve it? Or do they say, hey, here's how we're going to put a Band-Aid on it?
Yeah.
And
So
is this where we're getting healthy, unhealthy, met with multiple people, medical providers, business owners that were in an extremely unhealthy state. And, lifespan was very short, turned their lives around, found the path towards optimization, dug into everything they could learn and understand about, and seeking out the providers and the practitioners that will help put them on the right path. They get on the right path and they optimize, and then they become the biggest speakers, on the subject as well, because they get super passionate about it. But this is a really important journey to bring people on, and it's not, hey, let's just put a Band-Aid on it, forget about it. It's, hey, we got to change your life. We got to figure out how to get you there.
that's on it. That's my story. That's what's happening with a lot of stories. I mentioned it. I was a fat kid with asthma. I was that kid that had to come home every day and breathe into the dehumidifier every night and have my asthma medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the solution. Just take this for the rest of your life and you'll be fine. No one told me that by me exercising and losing weight, my asthma disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
It disappeared. No one told me that, because that's a hard way to go about it. Also, no one told me that prolonged use of inhalers and dilators and all this other fun stuff have side effects.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been a problem, right? So people are getting aware of this. They're getting smarter. They're noticing that there's side effects by taking the super shortcuts,
Mm-hmm.
or not adding some type of modifier behind it. Like, people are just sick and tired of sick care.
That's right. They're looking for something different. Come to the health optimization longevity space. They're looking for something different. Yet there's still a habit of just buying equipment, right? They just go out to buy equipment. They're looking for the next shiny gadget. They're buying tools. Are they buying the right tools? And are they building the right ecosystem? Because it sounds like, some of the best practices are building ecosystems, for these clients. They truly understand the target.
Well, yeah, like if this is why people that get into this space, they're so passionate about it, because you're just tired of all the nonsense.
Right.
It's true. Like,
but there's a lot attracted to this space too.
It's
that
annoying.
Still talk a lot of nonsense, right? They're bringing noise with them. Right.
You have to go to one primary to then go see a specialist, and then that specialist doesn't have the answer, so then you have to go to another specialist. But it's so much easier when you go to a designated concierge individual or cash-based practice that looks at more than just one component of your body, and be like, oh, we have that in-house. Let's just test everything. And then I'm going to put you into my ecosystem of professionals that I have here. You don't have to go to XYZ to go to XYZ to go to XYZ to go to XYZ for a total solution anymore. Right. Oh, wow, that's gotten better now after they've done the program for a bit. Wow, that improved. But you have some weakness in this area. Well, why don't we work on this weakness while you're here?
Yeah. And that's good. Now, elite practices, right? Better care, elite practices looking to optimize, right? They're looking to help people optimize through better care, through data tracking, objective data, putting them on the right program. Now, if we were to look at some of the best practices out there that are supporting a patient journey. Now, I'm not saying that every practice has all of these things going on in there, but I hope they touch on these things. And if I just break them down into category, I don't have to break them down by product, but to have within a practice that offers a program, and you and I talked about this earlier, they have their clear program that is going to help the patient down the journey. But to start that, you have the data. So very data, metabolic centric, understanding their starting point, building out the program. The program sets them on the journey. However, many of the clients, many of the patients, many individuals bring chronic conditions with them, chronic pain. It could be sports-related injuries. It could be age-related. It could be overuse. It could be, I feel amazing right now. They went out and played pickleball or ran or whatever, and they got injured. Recovery, right? So we're talking about keyed in health optimization practices that understand the different dynamics, from the data centric, from metabolic to recover, to establishing their program, to the recovery, and even therapeutic. These are some of the key centers, epicenters within a successful practice. Just get a couple points on that, and then kind of extrapolate from that. Fast forward 5 years from now, even 3 years from now, what does an elite optimization practice look like with all of what I just mentioned, and then some new things that are coming into play? What would you say?
Yeah, that's another loaded one, because there's so many ways to like spin this.
Yes.
It's so I usually keep it simple. It could get really elaborate, but you want to test, right? Test for the component, test for the niche that you're working with, that you're planning to work with, that you gravitate towards in. Program, which is the same thing as stress. So test, stress, program, whatever you want to call it. Then you want to supplement while they're being stressed and programmed, and then your recovery. So you're kind of hitting it from 4 angles. You're looking at the data metrics. You're now programming and creating a stress component to induce adaptions. You're supplying them internally and environmentally with the supplies so that they could rebuild from the stress that you just provided in the program. And then you're providing a recovery so that they could accelerate and optimize the actual stress and program that they're getting through. And each one of these have different definitions depending on the practice and who's going into that practice, right? From a standpoint, and this is my woo-woo head that I want. If this was a perfect world, I would have everything in one place. Everything, because we have 12 different systems in the body, 13 depending on what type of practice you have or methodologies you have, and then subsystems. Those are a lot of things that could affect the person's health.
Right.
We want to look from a physical, mental, spiritual kind of component.
Okay.
So the ideal practice, we would have all your testing metrics, again, for brain health, physical health, so biomechanical, strength-wise, cardiovascular, pulmonary health. That would be the basic starting point. And then spiritual health. For you would want testing for all of that. And then your program would entail all of that to help manipulate the tests, or at least improve the testing that you're doing. So whether it's mental training, like behavioral analysts on staff, whether it's a coach, trainer, performance coach for the body physiology, a dietitian involved, a medical professional to do all the blood work and look at it from a molecular standpoint and a chemical standpoint of what the body's doing, a hormonal standpoint, a person that's looking at sleep and other habits related to everything that we just mentioned. Ideally, I would want to see kind of all those people being aligned, and then you have your specialists aside. So if you need to send them to see someone who specializes in urinary or whatever, you have that in your bucket list. And then your program should be, how do I now have the proper tools to help them? So shockwave for rehab, for physical ailments, peptides, exosomes, all these other things that are kind of like iffy. But essentially, you want things to help you improve that person's life, and that would be your program and your stress. And then recovery, typical stuff. It could be hydrogen therapy, PEMF therapy, red light therapy, sound acoustic therapy. I would want all that in there. And that's a huge facility. That's a huge demand. Very hard to see that in the near future it's going to be there, because that's the other thing. People have tried to do everything at once, but it's too much.
You're getting into the health and strength coaching.
Too many things. It's
but if
a
you
lot
shrink
of
it down to the optimization practice, based on what can be done today, and even in the near future, without and maybe having network. But what would you say the key infrastructure? Yeah, if you keep it simple, what would you have in the ideal practice today? Destination, you're touching on all these items, but to keep it simple, where would you go with that?
Keep it super simple, because what I mentioned, the whole kit and caboodle thing, that's like a multi-department layout, and it requires a boss on top of a boss on top of another boss on top of another boss, and it's a lot.
But you could do all the recovery. You can do everything you mentioned, right? The PMF, the red light, hyperbaric, all those. It's doable in a small facility.
So ideally, in a small space, you would still want a room designated to try and get the majority of the testing, right? The bigger component testing based on the niche, which will be your VO2 testing, which could double as your resting metabolic rate, a body composition test, and then some form of strength test that I mentioned, or some form of physical evaluation. And then blood work doesn't really take up room. You could have a designated space to, if you want to spin things there, you can. You could do your blood work there, or you could send them out to do specific labs, and that could be done telemedicine-wise. And then after that, you just need your primary coaches to build habits and to also keep people accountable. That's the biggest thing, keeping them accountable to them changing their lives. And then recovery, you can have the simple things that don't take a lot of space. So you could do a PEMF, which only takes a table, a reclining table, reclining chair, whatever you want to call it. You could have a contrast therapy machine like Normatec boots or lymphatic drainage boots, same chair, could be used in the same chair. Hydrogen therapy could be there as well. Does not take any space up. So it's the things that don't take space that you want in that little area. And that's doable. And it could be unmanned. So meaning you put them on there and you just let them rest. I don't have to hover over them.
The unmanned is nice.
Yeah. So that would be kind of the ideal scenario. Less overhead, keep it simple. Your practitioners and your journey is going to be the most important thing. That's why people are there. Right?
That's right. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah. If you have a staff member that just sucks, that's going to ruin your whole business.
Get rid of them.
That's the most important.
Out the door. Make sure, and any of these practices, any of these scenarios, the person answering the phone and the person at the front desk have to be super outgoing, super passionate, and they have to understand your business and the patient need, right? They have to understand the patient position, establish what their outcomes are. They have to understand the process. They have to have a good, clear understanding of it, because that's what'll chase someone away. Someone will come in and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if I can help you. And they're like, they just have no idea.
No, and you cannot have someone that has resting bitch face.
No,
I can tell you that. You cannot. You cannot. I made that. Look, I will personally tell you, I have made that mistake. I had a young lady at the front desk, and we thought she was going to be a great candidate because during the interview, great personality, attractive. Unfortunately, like some of the businesses, you need an attractive woman. But she was terrible. She was terrible. She was mean to people. She just did not have emotions, and that really destroyed the business in the sense that people had a very bad first impression. And it's like, No, no. And then we changed it up. We started finding good people. Good.
Yep.
We started going with people that were actually here to help,
It's
and
good.
all of a sudden everything changed.
Yep. That's
Everything
it's so important. So important. Now, visionary segment. We talked a little bit about what that optimal practice would look like, but the visionary segment, AI, big talk of the town.
changed.
AI incorporated with data, personalization, memberships, continuous monitoring, driven outcomes. Where do you think we go with this AI craze? Everyone's trying to figure it out. People are still using it just to write emails. They're not, and we're bombarded every direction we take. How is AI going to help us navigate all of this stuff from a visionary? Is it what's going to happen? What do you think? Because you work a lot with AI too. You're involved.
I do work with AI, and this is what I tell people: you shouldn't freak out about AI taking
Right.
your job. It's not going to happen. People
Maybe the
that know how to
radiologist. No.
no people that actually understand technology and understand AI understand that this is a way to help you, not a way to take away from you. They're here to assist you to make things that are typically complicated or take a lot of time to condense that time. So, like I do it myself, there's videos that people send me to review, and I don't want to actually go through the 30-minute video that you want me to review. I'm going to have Gemini send me a summary and details about the video. So I just cut almost 30 minutes of my life with
A summary.
a summary. So that's one way that it's a prime example.
But
The
bring it
other
into the
thing is,
health system, right? We over your
well,
data. You can extrapolate so much information.
here's the other thing too. So AI is not the smartest thing right now. AI will scrap information from the computer, will find whatever you can.
Yep.
And I know we joked about it, but yeah, if there's a lot of people writing about Eric likes blueberries, well, guess what? It's going to figure out that Eric likes blueberries. But then in reality, I don't like blueberries. I like raspberries.
Eric loves blueberries. I
So
heard
it's
it on
wrong.
ChatGPT.
Right. So it's already wrong. So you can't trust it. But if you have an internal like an internal server that understands your language model, meaning you give it all the knowledge that you use personally and that you dictate as your parameters, now it's going to pick from what you yourself would say in certain cases.
But from the medical provider's perspective to the patient's provider's perspective,
right?
We can take all this accumulated data and give you some more predictable outcomes. I mean, there's a lot that can be done, I would think.
Right.
So just more data, more data, more data.
Like I mentioned earlier about VO2 testing and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I could go in depth and I could look at a lot of research numbers, but most people don't look at that. Most practitioners don't look at it because it's too complicated.
They don't know what to do with it. Yeah.
So part of my language model that I've taught one of my little AI buddies is how to read certain parameters on the research side and what I'm looking for when there's an athletic person that hits a VO2 of 55. Now the AI goes and goes, oh, X, Y, and Z that hit 55 has this as a marker. And I go, oh, that's fantastic because now we know we have to do this to improve that.
That's good.
Rather than me trying to like scrape through it and then try and figure it out.
And then you can back work it.
Oh, it made my life easier.
Right.
It saved me so much time. I used to be that guy that had to sit in front of like 4 screens of all this data and then sit there for like 2 hours and be like, oh, this guy's big toe is the only thing that's really messing up with his old gait.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And now I could just dump it. Yeah, I could dump it. I taught the AI to follow all the numbers I'm looking for. And now it goes, hey, your guy's big toe is off.
Yeah. What's your favorite AI to use for that? What are you doing? What are you using?
So I actually like the the softwares that have like a huge, like multi-component AI use, not just
Okay.
like one.
Yeah.
So things like Perplexity or
Okay.
GenSpark,
Yeah.
because they don't just use one AI, they use multiple ones. So like
Okay.
Claude and ChatGPT and all this other stuff, but also softwares that have their own internal properties.
Right.
So some friends of mine, like I could say the company's name, they integrate all the medical stuff all together and they integrate all the data together.
Okay.
And I could overlay a lot of the data. So when I do testing, I could actually
That's
see like,
great.
hey, this person started here and they
Right.
started doing hyperbaric chamber and XYZ.
Hmm.
So now that's actually affected their hemoglobin, which then
Really?
affected their VO2. And it could align all that together.
You can start
So
correlating.
it could create a correlating graph.
That's
And the AI
interesting.
will automatically just tell me like, hey, it looks like their
Helps you.
HBOT sessions are actually working.
Wow. Yeah,
But
that's great.
also when they do HBOT with red light, it actually does a significant change versus when they don't do red light. So that's a
Okay.
cool thing about this specific programs. But the
Huh.
ones that have multiple sources, they're usually the better ones. Oh, and I will mention this. Coming back to not replacing you, I want you to think of AI like an alarm clock for consumers. So for the individual,
Yeah.
you could have the alarm clock try and wake you up. What are you going to do? You hit snooze, right? Over and over again. But if I call you and I tell you to get your ass up from that freaking bed, it's a different response.
Right. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it all. Yeah, and this is this is great. I love the visionary aspect of it. We talked about a lot of different concepts today. Really dove in to why the metabolic is so important, why the scale is not your best friend. We looked at a lot of great things like that. I think really the biggest takeaway from today's conversation is that we are witnessing a shift. It's happening at a more rapid pace now than ever before. Been working in this health optimization space for like 15, 16 years, and we're seeing adoption and expectations and demand growing at a very, very fast pace right now. People want to see the difference. Healthcare is moving from generalized advice to measurable personalization. I think people want that special touch, that concierge feeling. The practices that thrive over the next decade won't necessarily be the ones with the most treatments. They'll be the ones that can measure, they can interpret, they can guide patients through meaningful change. They can be there to help them. And that's why DEXA, RMR, VO2, the metabolic data is becoming so important to everything that goes on to the program. It helps facilitate, even on the recovery side. There's just so many components to this that we could talk for the next couple hours. But Eric, as always, wanted to thank you for coming on here and sharing your wisdom on this space. Do you have one final thought to share with us before we wrap up?
Don't be scared of making mistakes and don't try and be perfect because the people that try and be perfect never move forward. They get
I
stuck.
like that. There you go. That's a good shared thought. Again, Eric, thank you for being here. Thank you everybody for joining us here on Optimize for Success. This is Jeff Rubinoff, and we'll see you on the next one. We're out. Thank you.